Hey, it's me, MLB. Here is Pool Chapter 40, and this one is titled Hide and Seek Danger Edition. Line up, Aizawa called sharply to his students, and everyone scrambled to get into line. As we come to the end of the training weekend, there's one more game before heading home. He looked along the line of students before him. Miss Lin has offered to be the target for this game. It's essentially a witch hunt. Sir? Kaminari's hand raised hesitantly. What's a witch hunt? In this instance, it refers to Miss Lin having to be captured and brought to justice. She obviously has done nothing wrong, but you will all exhaust every avenue until she is captured. Understood? He replied sternly. You sweat dropped. Aizawa, why must you be so harsh? Why do you want me to die? Why do I have to die today? I'm too young to die. Aizawa gave the girls of the class a sharp look, as if to say, I know she's your favourite teacher, but you can't go easy on her. Then continued, I'll be observing everyone's tenacity in the capture of Miss Lin. She's been given permission to fight back to make the capture more realistic, so if I find that any of you have been balking when it comes to using force in the capture, you'll be heavily reprimanded and extra assignments will be given to you. Please go easy on me, your eyes begged the girls in the class, who gave you an apologetic look. So much for Aizawa having a crush on Miss Lin. This is basically a death wish for her if Bakugo or Todoroki get to her first, Jiro whispered to Mina. Silence, Aizawa barked, his hair standing on end as his eyes glowed, one hand wrapped around his attack scarf just in case it was needed to restrain the talking student. Jiro shut up immediately and hung her head fearfully. I'll give Miss Lin 10 minutes to hide somewhere in the bush, then a loud buzzer will sound. Aizawa continued. You'll capture her as quickly as possible, then we can all leave and go home. The student's sweat dropped, but called out a dead-sounding, Hi, to acknowledge that they'd heard him. Ready? Aizawa asked you, his dead eyes finding yours before you nodded and turned away. Good luck, everyone, you called brightly, as you gave them all a brief wave and smile over your shoulder before heading off down the closest bush trail. Once the students couldn't see your face, you pulled the biggest crying face you could muster as you jogged off into the surrounding trees. I don't want to do this, you wailed to yourself. The sun was just starting to set when you found an abandoned concrete building in the middle of nowhere. It looked like it was going to be a hotel of some sort, but the riverbed that was running beside it had dried up, and thus you assumed that they had given up on the idea because the water supply had disappeared. This might be an advantageous spot. You quickly trotted over the rocks towards what you assumed to be the front door and entered. If I can get upstairs, then I can look out one of the windows and see who's coming. You entered the dilapidated building and looked around. Graffiti covered every wall, and random shards of glass and wood were strewn throughout, making it look quite formidable. Looks like kids have had some fun in here, you thought, seeing some old mattresses and lounges set up in a circle with some burned sticks in the centre. It's probably a gang hideout. As you were looking for stairs, you heard a loud buzzer, and your heart stopped beating for a second. Oh no, here we go. Almost immediately following the sound of the buzzer was the unmistakable sound of an explosion, and your heart threw a few panicked beats against the inside of your ribcage as you tried not to think about certain death by the most aggressive student. Running down the hall, you saw a hole in the flooring above, and so stretched your arms up and grabbed onto the jutted edge and pulled yourself up and through, clambering to your feet and running to the window. Calm down, Yin, no one knows you're here. They'll all head down the track that you took, but then you veered off, so they won't be coming here immediately. You have time to come up with a plan. Back at the start line, Aizawa sounded the buzzer and watched as Bakugo launched ahead immediately, leading the attack. Figures, he thought with a small smirk. He always goes on ahead on his own. Aizawa had listened as the class had come up with a plan of attack. They figured that you wouldn't just keep running and would find somewhere to hide, and so sent some of the faster class members out ahead to try and catch up to you. Then let some of the others go next, fanning out to make sure that they covered a wider area. With the front runners and scouts ahead, Jiro, Shoji and Koda used their quirks to see if they could locate you by sight and sound, and then used the animals of the bush to point the students in the direction of your whereabouts. Aizawa stood by, watching, waiting to hear if they had found you yet, but so far the game had only just started. I've spotted a building in the bush, Shoji announced to both Jiro and Koda beside him, eyes on the ends of each of his limbs looking in every which way. It's dark inside, so I can't see if anyone is in there, but it might be worth looking into. Koda. Jiro addressed the meek animal quirk user. Send some birds to direct students in that direction, just to check it out. Koda nodded and called some birds down from the trees, then asked them to please find students near the building in the bush and direct them to go there. The handful of birds took to the sky and flew over the tree line towards the building, circling back to find any students nearby. Upon finding one student, they circled him and hovered overhead to get his attention, and then flew slowly towards the building with him following. I think the birds have found someone and are leading them to the building, Shoji announced again, watching the happenings through his multiple eyes on each extended limb. Who is it? Can you see them? Jiro asked him. He paused, waiting to catch sight of who it was. Yes, I see them, he said, focusing on the movements through the trees as the student moved towards an open patch. It's Tokoyami. And there ends chapter 40. Stay tuned for chapter 41.